Article on the use of surveys by managers in organizations really circles back to a set of practices that were extremely common in the course of my career, which was regular employee surveys that tested attitudes, feedback from employees on company policies were extremely common. And I had some very significant engagements with companies like Northern Telecom that core was the employee survey to that engagement. Companies like I did a big project with Oryx Energy, which used employee surveys. Chaparral Steel, we were using employee surveys, and then certainly Texas Instruments over the 3 years that I worked with them had many survey kind of feedback and data gathering that they were using. So there was a time when it was extremely common, and what Judge et al. Point out is that there's been a migration to the use of predictive analytics, data analytics gathered, indirectly that capture directly behavior. And I personally am a huge fan of data analytics and the kind of predictive analytics that we can get from that direct gathering of data. But this article really brought back to me the real power that can be employed that employee surveys provide for management. And of course, the conclusion is that you need both. But I think what's interesting here is the observation that predictive analytics are driving away surveys, and that there's a real loss in not doing the surveys. So why this reading? I'd like you in particular to pay attention and think about the points they make about how surveys are effectively a type of two-way transmission of information that they themselves communicate. First, they communicate what issues are important to management in the questions that are asked, and then we get back employees' responses. They're certainly anonymous and not personal, but I think the article also points out some things that have definitely been true in my experience, that there's this difference between data gathering and communication, and that analytics are very effective data gathering, but surveys provide data with some communication happening at the same time. So I think this is something of importance for us to pay attention to. And so I'd like you to kind of think about it. It's a very short article. It's kind of barely, I guess it's not more than about 2 pages. It was kind of interesting writing the quiz questions for this. I almost felt like I had a quiz question per sentence. But the article is that dense, and it's useful to really think about some of the things that they're saying, especially thinking about it in conjunction with the social information processing model. So they have some things that are, I think, a little surprising, one of which is that the very asking of questions can change employee behavior. And in several instances, um, I think this is a little anomalous, but even employees who disagree on the survey seem to change their behavior, partly because they engage in reflection. It causes them to engage in information seeking, which can result in behavioral change. And that's interesting. I think also the fact that they talk about how response rates themselves provide information is an interesting thing to think about. But I think also at the core of this is really thinking about in terms of how employees think about surveys, not just what the doing of surveys, but survey, and especially a regular surveying program, periodic, gives employees a sense that they have voice in the company, especially if the survey results are fed back. I think that's really critical. It shows that management takes the surveys seriously when the information is fed back to employees. It can also, in terms of my work in change management, survey feedback is one of the kind of go-to mechanisms for initiating change, because survey results can become a reason for dialogue. They create conversations, and very productive conversations. So survey feedback is a very common change management tool, what this article argues is that change is an ever-present problem. If we attend to what Cotter has advised us, is that it's the core role of management. And so if that's the case, then surveys are a tremendous instrument for both opening up dialogue, for getting information, and also kind of keeping this ongoing sense of relationship, that the company is not a totally anonymous entity, and that management's outreaching of information itself is a communication and an act of leadership.